Thank you so much, Nancy. And thank you so much, Eric, for this wonderful music. Do you guys agree?
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
Let me try this again. Good morning, everyone. We are blessed with such a beautiful day today. And for 1 hour, let us get lost in this space. We are so blessed to be here this morning. Welcome to First Parish in Concord. My name is Anderson Manuel, and I serve as Director of the Gospel Ensemble here at First Parish. First Parish is a member of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and love lies at the center of our faith. We covenant to transform and grow spiritually and ethically as we adapt to this changing world. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life. In this congregation, we affirm that Black Lives Matter as we embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. We are so glad you have joined us for worship this morning. If you're visiting in person, we invite you to stop by the welcoming table after the service and say hello. Masks are optional throughout the building, including in this space. We continue, though, to use enhanced ventilation and encourage masking to keep our communal spaces safe for everyone. If you are visiting us online this morning, welcome. Please turn around and let's give them a wave. And also, please give a wave to the person sitting next to you or across from you. It is my pleasure this morning to welcome our guest preacher today. He's been here before, Reverend Mark Lavin. I hope that I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Mark served as the First Universalist Church in Rockland, Maine for 14 years, leaving in August 2019 to hospice his mother. He graduated from Starking School for the Ministry in 2003 after receiving a call to ministry while attending Clark University, where he majored in philosophy. Born and raised right here in Massachusetts, Mark learned lessons early in life about painful blessings as a die-hard Red Sox fan, a lesson many of us have shared. So following our service today, we have the Worshiping Circle. It's a time for us to dive deeper into what worship meant to you today. It meets in the Brooks Room and online following the service. Please join us for coffee hour in the parish hall downstairs. If you need help with anything, with assisted listening devices, play packets for the kids, or even play packets for you, or directions to the restroom, please see one of our greeters and they will help you. And now, I invite you to rise with me and sing hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Gather the Spirit of the Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's really nice to see you all again. We are here on this golden late spring morning to worship, to experience hope and insight within the embrace of chosen community, a community that asks of us honesty, courage, and growth. May we live fully, love deeply, learn daily, and speak truly, that together we might leave the sacred legacy of a better world. We light our chalice this morning, like all congregations across the nation are right now, and like your congregation members are up in Ferry Beach this morning. So with the kindling of this flame, let us reaffirm our commitment to receive our gifts with grace and gratitude and to use them to bless the world in the spirit of love. There is a reading, a unison reading. Please join me. O flame of our faith, open our hearts and fill our bodies and souls with persistent strength. Enliven our spirits and engage us deeply in this life of ours. This sacred, essential moment. So I brought a quick story today to share with you all, and this is really a story that's about the power of stories and how the stories we tell ourselves create the world we live in. Once upon a time, in a faraway ocean, there was an island that had two sides. And down the middle of the island was a huge wall. No one knew who built the wall, but it was very old, very high, and very steep. And it literally cut the island in half. Now, on one side of the island, there were many beautiful birds and fruit trees and flowers and lots of food. Good, fresh rivers, too. The Makoko people, however, lived on the other side of the island of two sides. There were trees, but there were few of them, and they were small, and the flowers were dry, and there were lots of wild animals, some of whom seemed to think that the Makoko tasted pretty good. The Makoko, sadly, had always lived there with no way to cross to the other side. Their life was hard and difficult. They were hungry and afraid of the growling beasts, and they felt defeated. But the Makoko told stories around the fire at night. And one story they told was about how some of their ancestors found a way to jump over the wall with the help of a pole. But for many years, not a single tree had grown with wood strong enough to make such a pole. So few Makoko believed that this was possible. They had gotten used to their difficult life, and they gave up hope, and they just went hungry a lot of the time. It's just a stupid story, that's all. But wouldn't you know it, one day near the cliff, a tree that had been growing for years finally got so large that there was suddenly the possibility of cutting branches off to make poles. And the feeling amongst the people was excitement. Their expectation was enormous, and there was no doubt among the tribe as to whom they would choose to use the poles, the great chief and the great priest. But when the two of them were given the opportunity to make the jump, they felt so afraid that they didn't want to do it. They said the pole might break. Maybe it's not long enough. It just won't work, that's all. And so the chief and the priest talked themselves out of it. But since they knew some people might be upset at them or look down on them for not having the courage to jump, they decided to invent some old stories. And the stories they invented were about how every single jump before had failed. And they told that story so many times and for so long that finally there was no Makoko who did not know how foolish you would have to be to even attempt the jump. So the poles just sat there, free to use free to try, but nobody did. But finally, one day, two kids, Naru and Ariki, who were 9 years old, realized that they wanted a different life. And they were tired of being hungry, they were tired of fear of growling beasts, and tired of that big wall getting in their way. And so one day they decided to take up the poles. Nobody stopped them, but everyone did try to discourage them. It's not going to work. You'll hurt yourself. It can't be done. No one else ever really did it. Ariki said to Naru, perhaps the jump will go badly and perhaps not, but staying here hungry forever on this side of the wall isn't any better, is it? You're right, Ariki, we can't wait. Let's pole jump tomorrow. And the next day, Naru and Ariki did jump, and they made it over the wall and to the good side of the island. They were afraid all the way, taking up the pole, jumping, flying through the air. But when they landed safely on the other side of the island, they hugged each other. They said, that wasn't so bad, was it? And as they ran away to discover their new life behind them on the other side of the wall, they could hear, it was just luck. Well, maybe tomorrow. What a terrible jump. And Naru and Ariki understood why so few people took the leap. Because on the difficult side of the island, you only ever heard the hopeless voices of people without dreams. People who gave up. People who, therefore, would never jump. So one of the things I like about being in UU churches is that we are people who take the leap. So let's keep doing that.
Each month, we are so blessed to share our plate collection with organizations that are nominated by our members. These are places where people volunteer or serve in some capacity. This month, it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are supporting the Restoration Project, whose mission is to help individuals with mental health issues achieving sustaining lives by offering remedial, transitional employment and facilitating their integration in the community. Through classes in furniture, refinishing, and repair, people learn and sometimes relearn skills that lead to self-sufficiency and active participation in the community. They find a sense of care and belonging. Maybe you can consider volunteering your time. It could change a life. So for all that we do in these walls and beyond them, we thank you for your gifts this morning. We will now gladly receive the offering.
Our first reading this morning is from the late Howard Zinn, a man whose take on history and whose support of Martin Luther King and whose call to withdraw from Vietnam was considered so controversial by the United States government that he was labeled a high security risk and thus subject to immediate arrest should the United States ever enter into a state of emergency. This is from his 2006 book, A Power Governments Cannot Suppress. Zinn wrote, "To be hopeful in bad times is not just foolishly romantic. It's based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion, sacrifice, courage, and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we see only the worst, it destroys our capacity to do something. If we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning world into a different direction. And if we do act, in however small a way, we don't have to wait for some grand utopian future. The future is an infinite succession of present moments. And to live now as we think human beings should live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a marvelous victory." Our second reading also comes from an outspoken and controversial author, Arundhati Roy. Her novel, The God of Small Things, won accolades around the world, but she doesn't confine her activism to writing. She's also a visionary and quite political, filled with fiery hope and strong critiques of worldwide government-sponsored oppression. And Roy said, "Our strategy should be not only to confront empire, but to lay siege to it, to deprive it of oxygen, to shame it, to mock it with our art, our music, our literature, our stubbornness, our joy, our brilliance, our sheer relentlessness, and our ability to tell our own stories. Stories that are different than the ones that we are being brainwashed to believe. The corporate revolution will collapse if we refuse to buy what they are selling. Their ideas, their version of history, their wars, their weapons, their notion of inevitability. Remember this, we be many, they be few. They need us more than we need them. Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. And on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing." As my years in ministry start to pile up, I've noticed a few things, not the least of which is my beard turning whiter and whiter over time. But more importantly, I've noticed that there's this full-on next generations that are now coming up behind me, all shiny and eager. And now as my beard turns whiter, some of these younger colleagues have begun asking me about different parts of ministry. And often those conversations will turn to worship, and they'll ask how I approach sermons each Sunday. More specifically, they're asking, what does it mean to preach Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, year after year, and then trying to imagine what it would mean to preach for decade upon decade. I think their unstated question is, when do you run out of things to say? And I want to be clear here, as I am in those conversations, that our worship, Unitarian Universalist worship, is a shared enterprise. Certainly, I and your ministers here have a lot to do with shaping it and providing focus. But worship is primarily about what we're all searching for, what we're all struggling with. The world of which we're all a part will almost dictate themes and ideas. Each week, it offers a war, or a hurricane, or a heat wave, a shooting, a flood, or some unbelievable injustice. And that very same world also offers reports of a remarkably kind act, some astonishing self-sacrifice, a sparkling, beautiful spring day, a truce, some declaration of rights, a work of art that's astonishing, be it a painting or a music or film. In some sense, I tell them the art of preaching is really just pay attention to what's going on around you, and then wrestle with it publicly, and try to find a way to give people some hope. Now, if you immerse yourself in politics and media, it's easy to think that it's harder and harder to find reasons for hope. But I think that has more to do with the media than it has to do with the world. And I would talk often in Rockland about breakdown and breakthrough, and how we seem to be poised on the edge of one or the other or both at the same time. Civilization may be unraveling in a lot of areas, and some of its structures may be collapsing, but it's also in the midst of a tremendous upheaval of creativity, a flood of innovation and genius and love that's pouring out of millions upon millions of people. There's this great awakening that is far louder and stronger and more interesting than the sleepy resignation and corrosive maliciousness and ignominious decline that the media prefers to focus on. But most importantly, I always pass on the advice that one of my mentors, Olav Newyar, gave to me. And he said, just live your life. Cook your supper, wash the dishes, take a walk with a friend, hold hands with your spouse, marvel at the wisdom of children, or just grab a cup of coffee in the morning down at your local cafe and your sermons will write themselves. And truly, a number of my sermons begin with a conversation that I've had that I've been downtown in a coffee shop, or when I've been traveling and met someone, or at a show. And this sermon, too, starts from a random conversation at a coffee shop in Berkeley, California, where I was recently. A guy at the coffee shop tells me about a dance contest that he's going to be in that evening. He said it's going to start at 7 and it was going to last till about midnight, and it would be a lot of fun, and I should come by. Now, I had an agenda, a sort of carefully thought out itinerary for that day and that night and the next day. I wanted to reconnect with all of the places that I love in that part of the country where I lived for 3 years when I went to Star King, but I only get to rarely these days. So I wanted to see a lot of people and go to a lot of old haunts, but for whatever reason, I decided to take that invitation, and I actually did go to this dance contest. I paid my $10, and I went through the entrance room and found this back room without any windows. And there are these two, I don't know, maybe 10 by 20 foot dance floors. And one floor served as the contest floor, and there were 5 seats along an edge for the judges. And the other was just a practice space, and just there for plain fun. And people just danced all night on that second floor for joy. And if I'm being honest, I didn't really understand what was going on and what the rules of the contest were. But the dancers were in pairs, and one by one, they entered and started dancing. And I also understood that they weren't choreographed pieces. The pairs didn't pick the music, and they were just improvising together. And I guess breakdancing is what comes to mind first, but I'm telling you, it was a lot more than that. There were these movements that were so slow and fluid, and people doing leaps and gymnastics. I really couldn't believe it. And you know that breakdancing was developed originally as a way of competing, of addressing conflicts without violence. But everyone was just dancing there with these grins on their faces. Each of them dancing with their pair, dancing at each other and challenging each other, but all in really good fun. But let me tell you what else I saw. I saw 8-year-old boys and girls dancing, competing with adults. I saw men and women and folk all along the continuum of gender expression. Folks in their teens and 20s and 30s and 40s dancing. I saw women and children and men competing with and against each other with great big smiles on their faces the entire time I was there, and hugging each other and walking around after their contest with their arms around each other's shoulders. No matter who had won, according to the judges, they were congratulating each other. And I saw people on the other dance floor, the fun practice floor, receiving constant congratulation and constant blessing. I saw people who were slender with stick-straight bodies, and I saw people who were heavy-set, solid like a bag of cement. I saw very tall dancers, and I saw dancers much closer to the ground. I saw people in every shape, and I saw people of every ethnicity and color you can imagine. It was this perfect demographic representation of the world. Or to use the usual words, I saw people with clear roots in Asia, both east and southeast and south, in Latin America, both central and south. I saw people from the Middle East, especially in Iran, people with roots in Europe, in Africa, and Polynesia, and also wondrous mixtures of every one of these origins, forging beautiful features and skin colors. I saw all of this, and the contest went on for hours, and I was happy and, in E.E. Cummings' word, almost inarticulate with thanks throughout this entire evening. And about a half hour into it, I was beginning to feel something inside of me that I couldn't quite put my hands on, and that I couldn't name in any easy way. Something that was, what we said at Star King, not yet speech ripe. And it almost began to bother me to try to find the words for it. And suddenly, in a flash, it occurred to me what I was experiencing. It was that I was feeling the actual experience of living in hope. I sat there in this state of hope, submerged in hope, lit up with hope, alive with hope. And not hope as some highfalutin cardinal virtue or comforting theological expression of what's going to come, but hope blowing in my flesh, hope in the present moment. I tasted for a little bit the world to come, as I had always best imagined it. Not as something to come in the future, but as already here. Not in some utopian day in the future. In the Gospel of Thomas from the Gnostic Gospels, there's this interesting dialogue between the teacher Jesus and his students. And they ask their teacher, when is the realm of God, or the era of love and justice for all is a better translation. But when is that realm of God really going to arrive? And Jesus answers, well, it's already here. It's spread across the whole earth. You're just not seeing it. I know sometimes it's hard to see, because we're inundated with all the negatives, the invented crises and the self-inflicted wounds of politics. Or there's times we use it in a watered-down way. We'll use the word hope as a simple substitute for the word wish. I hope everything goes well during your surgery, or I hope you get your wallet back. Simple wishing for good for others. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, but really that's just common courtesy. It's not a very powerful emotion. But what I experienced at that dance contest wasn't common courtesy. It was something much stronger. It's like what I would feel in my congregation on a lot of Sundays, listening to Sojourner play these improvised pieces during the offering, or watching this community of our thriving kids grow up, or in simply singing beloved hymns together, experiencing the deep bonds that exist in community, and specifically in religious community, that ease even when things aren't easy, of real community. It's something powerful, something joyful, something transcendent, and more profound and deeper than the world of shootings and crises and war that I mentioned in the beginning of the sermon. Like Howard Zinn, I try to hold the tension in that dual truth in worship. That right alongside the horrible events which throw themselves at us every single day, we can also every single day be joyfully ambushed by good things, actions of love and compassion, stories of remarkable forgiveness and community support. And my services are my attempts to respond to both of those realities, the shockingly painful and the astonishingly beautiful. In Zinn's great words, to be hopeful in bad times is not foolishly romantic. It's based on the fact that human history is a history not only of cruelty, but also of compassion and sacrifice and courage and kindness. What we choose to emphasize in this complex history will determine our lives. If we only see the worst, it destroys our capacity to do anything. And if we remember those times and places, and there are so many, where people have behaved magnificently, this gives us the energy to act, and at least the possibility of sending this spinning top of a world off in a different direction. And if we do act in some small way, we don't have to wait around for some utopian future. The future, he says, is an infinite succession of present moments. And to live now as we think human beings best ought to live, in defiance of all that is bad around us, is itself a remarkable victory. At the dance contest, I witnessed a victory. Not one dance team over another. I witnessed a victory for humanity, present today. now, in this moment, not later. I was there. I felt it. Now, Roy says the same thing with even greater power, almost an aggressive power. She says our strategy should be not only to confront empire, but to lay siege to it, to deprive it of oxygen. That's not a weak metaphor. With our art, our music, our literature, our stubbornness, our joy, our brilliance, our sheer relentlessness, and our ability to tell our own stories. Stories that are different than the ones we've been brainwashed to believe. The corporate revolution will collapse if we refuse to buy what they're selling, namely their version of history, their notion of inevitability. The notion of inevitability is the precise opposite of hope. And at that dance studio, I was in the midst of the positive, not the negative. In that room of many colors and many styles, there was a great deal of joy and welcome. And I was seeing with my own eyes the realm of love and justice for all. The realm of God, in the words of the Gospel of Thomas, already right now spread across the earth, right there in Berkeley. It wasn't some hope for what's to come. It was hope in body present, already here. And if only for an evening I touched it. And so I think about my younger colleagues in worship, and I go back to that advice from Olaf. He said, just live your life. Let yourself be open to what's right there in front of you, and over again, the sermon you want to give will simply jump up onto the pulpit and deliver itself. And best of all, he said, most of your career, you're only then going to be the servant to the sermon that comes to you as a gift because you chose to live your life, and you will live in gratitude all the rest of your days. And it's been true. May it be for you too. Live your lives open to possibility and opportunity, and may you too live lives of gratitude all of your days. Amen.
As we enter into our time of prayer, I invite you this morning to take a deep breath, and I invite you to close your eyes or leave them open. And I invite you for a few minutes to think of the young men and women who live in harm's way, who hear gunshots and wonder if their next heartbeat is their last. In this moment, I think of the teachers who ache for vacation, the students who have stopped learning now. I think of the folks distorted by their addictions, fighting uphill battles, wandering the streets or the mazes of their lives. I think of those I know and those I do not know who are facing health problems, dizziness or ringing, or aches and joints they didn't know they had. I think of their bewilderment and fear. I think of those who are out of work, of those who hate their jobs, or of those who wish that they hadn't retired. I also think of those who love their work, or work too much, or who have too many irons in the fire. I think of those who paint, sing, or dance, or write poetry. And I think of those who are blocked in their art and just can't move forward. I think of those who are highly structured, and I think of those who are spontaneous and feel constrained by structure. I think of those who take time to think, and those who respond with feelings first and want to burst. I think of those who know betrayal and disappointment. And I think of those who know love and surprise and unexpected joy. I think of the music to come, but I think about welcoming the silence first. If you know of anyone who's in your heart right now, I want you to take a moment and to think about them. In my classroom every morning, I start my day, I said, let's send some positive vibes to the world because our world needs it. Right now, let's take a moment. I think of all those who have shepherded me to this very moment of grace and joy. Those who've loved me even when I was hard to love. Those I have loved even when they were hard to love. Even those strangers who have been there for me in faraway places, and those who now live in my heart and in yours. I think of them. I think of their names. And I now like to invite you to say the names of the people who are in your heart. You can say them aloud if you wish, or you can say them inside your heart. Our world, my family, thank you for this day. I think of the training, the practice, the skill, and the passion behind the music. I think of the composer, the influences, the rhythm of the heart behind it all. But today, I just think of how lucky I am to live. Please now join me for a moment of silence.
So I brought a visual prayer video for us this morning. And something you may have seen before. It's beautiful and funny, and I wanted something that would show both the joy and power of dancing and also the possibility of world community. And this, without hitting you over the head with it, shows the possibility of peace and how there are important cultural differences all over. There are universal things about humans. The joy of community, the power of dance, the thirst for joy. There's this really beautiful song in the video, and it's the original Bengali of the Tagore poem, The Same Stream of Life. And I just wanted you to have the Tagore words in your mind as you were watching this video. And his poem reads, "The same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measures. It's the same life that shoots in joy through the dust of the earth in numberless blades of grass and breaks into tumultuous waves of leaves and flowers. It's the same life that is rocked in the ocean cradle of birth and of death, in ebb and in flow. I feel my limbs are made glorious by the touch of this world of life, and my pride is from the life throb of ages dancing in my blood this moment." So please enjoy this with me.
Okay, stay right there. Do it that way, okay? Hold it steady.
Abbiamo da guardare.
just a silly dance. It's really beautiful. In the 1920s, the great Chinese epigrammist Lu Xun wrote this: "Hope is like a road in the country. There was never a road, but when many people walk on it, the road comes into existence." That's exactly what I was trying to say this morning. So may we together make a road where none was before. Let's sing together one last time. We're going to sing "There's More Love Somewhere." Can rise in body and or spirit. Friends, go out into the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak, suffering. Honor all beings. Amen. Go in peace.